back to BLOCKTV, where it is time for cryptonomics, and always a good time to remind people that there is a race out there, a race for a centralized digital coin, as can be evident by this week's news about Tunisia actually launching one, announcing one. And to make more sense out of that and look at the bigger picture, I'm joined, luckily for me, by none other than Usher Westrop-Evans, senior correspondent for BLOCKTV News. Usher, is this the first live CBDC?
So they claim, although whether it's truly live yet or not is also up to question. They've stated that it's out. We're getting reports that exist. The central bank chairman in Tunisia did a symbolic first transaction, but they still say it's in a test form. It's not going to be fully rolled out for the next few months. But you know what? Yes, we'll say it's out there. They're ahead of everyone else.
Others, let's give them
exactly,
that.
exactly.
Okay. Which is phenomenal.
They're more ahead than others, but there are plenty of others in the race. Yeah, obviously, China, but also we're talking Malaysia, the Philippines, Argentina, Brazil, and other countries all are in various stages of development or considering developing CBDCs. What this could potentially mean, and this could really change the face of the future of digitalized currencies. Now, we have to be careful here. We're not necessarily talking about always cryptocurrencies. There are varying states of cryptographic tracking.
CBDC, let's remind people, is a centralized.
Exactly.
Centralized.
Yeah, it's centered around the central bank. Still the old fiat currencies you know and love. The difference is there's no paper money backing it up. There's none of the printing required, distribution, creation, inflation, all these printing of money in the sort of sense. It no longer requires any of those tangible elements. And again, certain countries are just working with cryptographic processes. Others are developing blockchain backing to keep it accountable. Others are not. Others are keeping that centralized. There are a variety of approaches.
But many, as you mentioned, are moving towards it because at the end of the day, one can say that is the future.
Exactly.
That is the future. One that's not moving as fast towards it, one can argue, is the United States.
Certainly not. The US is certainly not in a rush to move towards it, but an interesting report just came out in the last couple of weeks from a collaboration between IBM and the Official Monetary and Financial Institutions Forum, which is a think tank of a lot of ex-central bankers and working closely with central banks around the world in the sphere. And they say that they took a survey of 23 different participating central banks, 13 from advanced economies and 10 from emerging markets, and they came out with some interesting findings about the approaches that central banks have towards CBDCs.
Which are?
So some interesting stats that came out of that is 73% of respondents said that they'd require CBDCs to be available everywhere where cash is currently used. So you would need to have a full integration before they would be willing to go ahead doing that. But however, one of the big numbers that came out of this, and the greatest concern that's perhaps holding back the widespread use of CBDCs, is 82% of central bankers said that their primary financial stability concern was the high speed of digital bank runs. Meaning, no longer would you have to physically go to the bank to withdraw your money. You could just digitally remove it, in theory. You could digitally have a run on the bank, collapse a bank in seconds if there was an algorithmic tick that saw a certain trading bot go, this country has hit a certain marker and we're concerned about this bank or that bank or the finances in this country. Suddenly it's instantly pulled in microtransactions that are done in seconds by some of these algorithmic bots. You could collapse whole financial markets without even realizing.
Which brings us back to
nanoseconds, exactly. So it's a deep concern. They want to keep some of those limitations still in place because, the human nature of current finances, that you still need a human to sort of actually physically do something, slows things down a little bit. Lets cool heads prevail.
But those, in higher places in various advanced countries would argue that gives you security.
Exactly. Yeah. That gives you some element of security. Interestingly as well, 83% of respondents in this survey said that they thought their role as a central bank would not change significantly with CBDCs, which kind of shows you how these guys are thinking about this. This is a development in the current existing structures. This is not a revolutionary change in financial systems. This is not a breaking out of the establishment banking sector.
This is the old system in a technologically advanced way.
Exactly, moving forward in a technologically advanced way. There are a series of other interesting findings, and I recommend people go out and read that report, but I won't go through the whole list now. But so there's an interesting element as well, because obviously we know that there are already products that exist that utilize some of these elements. Stable coins, most notably pegged to various different fiat currencies around the world, Tether being the most famous, but there are numerous stable coins around the world that function as these currencies do. Why do central banks need their own currencies? Well, the fact is central banks don't think stablecoins are trustworthy. And when you're talking about institutions trading equities, bonds, derivatives, and other instruments that total value of around $800 trillion as the total value of all those
all
markets
markets.
combined, and you're utilizing currency as the base for all those, compared to the 0.2 trillion, as the study puts out, the 200 or so billion that we have for cryptocurrency markets at the moment. This technology, it's too new, it's too small, it's too untested. The central banks want to maintain control. Maybe that picture will change in the future, but as it stands right now, as much as central bank digital currencies may be the future of the way we utilize currency and the way, Tunisia is already going ahead with their
Right.
e-dinar. We've seen China is potentially only months away.
And that's my question. China being potentially, and of course we're all, because it's China, we're
Right.
all theorizing and
The
and
transparent,
supposed-
it's a tad opaque.
It's exactly.
We're not seeing
but
everything.
let's say, because they seem to be, according to unconfirmed reports, because you can't confirm this, but they seem to be ahead of the game.
Right.
They seem to be that if this indeed happens in China, a CBDC, that they've got this, they've got the mechanism in place.
Look, they're ahead of the game they're arguably already ahead of the game in terms of the mobile payments sector that's
Exactly.
taken place, although that's run more from the private sector. WeChat and Alipay having over 90% of those transactions under their control, whether it's truly private or the government has a hand in things, that's
we'll
more
never
to do
know,
with the internal
right?
workings of China. But yes, certainly, Yael, in terms of creating a CBDC that is on a large scale, I mean, it's great that Tunisia is doing this, but Tunisia doesn't quite have the global
Like advanced
clout.
countries as opposed to
Exactly. Of the global clout of China, but they're really going to get that first mover advantage on scale. If they're able to get it out in the sort of timeline that they're predicting, they're going to have that first mover advantage, and it could give them a lot of that sort of, maybe there'll be some bugs, maybe there'll also be some flaws, but it also means that they will be the ones there in place when this infrastructure is being built and developed. And that's what it's all about, Yael. These infrastructure needs to be put in place. The channel mechanisms between different countries. If central banks want to test out how this works around the world, and the renminbi has a digital version that they can utilize, practice, test, well, why would they then later switch to the dollar or the euro
or anything
or
else?
the
And
yuan
and one could argue that they might be actually set for it if they were indeed developing this since 2014, which some of the reports
Exactly what they
suggest.
claim they've been since 2014. So it'll be interesting to see what impact that really has. But certainly it does look like, Yael, this is going to have a significant step for the future, and maybe not in the sort of libertarian or crypto,
Not the original
anarchistic
ideology
sort of
that
view.
came about with Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
but-
it might take things in a very different direction, but suffice it to say, still interesting times. What we take for granted in our monetary policy right now, Yael, may not be what the future looks like.
Entirely so. Asha Westrop-Evans, thank you for shedding light on that. What is the digital race for a CBDC, a central bank digital coin, and we'll see who gets there first. We were BLOCKTV. We'll be right back.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter